It was just the most massive thing I've ever seen. To tell you the honest truth, I thought, well, we're the only ones left on this planet. Something's happened. We've missed something here.
The fear that went in me when I seen it was just, like the feeling, I'd say it was fear, but I've never felt that feeling before in my entire life.
It's a weird feeling, like you can't explain it when you don't know. You feel like you're being followed, but you don't know what it is.
We had two to our right, another one in front of us, another one to the left, and another one just across the road, shaking the daylights out of the tree. All we get was a big red eye.
I remember waking up and looking at the end of the bed, and there was a figure there, almost insect-like, and then I blacked out.
Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Cade Moyer, and you are listening to the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast. If you have had an encounter and would like to share it, please get in touch with me. My email address is believepod@gmail.com. If you enjoy the podcast, be sure to leave us a rating or review wherever you listen, and head on over to our website, believepod.com, and consider becoming a member to get bonus episodes and video content. Tonight I'm joined by Mark, and Mark is a returning guest from earlier this season. He had a absolutely fantastic episode of essentially a table went missing for a couple of days and turned up again, which is mind-blowing. That has to be one of the biggest paranormal items that's ever been moved in my knowledge. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Hey Kate, how are you?
I'm great, mate. It's good to have you back because your episode blew my mind. And basically after we hit record last time, you said, oh yeah, by the way, I've had some really cracking UFO encounters and, you know, some other weird stuff happen. And I was like, Mark, you held back from me, mate. So we got you back on, and I want to hear about it all, mate, because, you know, you lived in this absolutely terrifying haunted house, but you've also had some very unusual activity outside of that. So,
well, yeah. Well, I think that it was haunted because, you know, like it was connected with the UFO thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, with where people, you know, talk about the UFO encounters and then the kind of high strangeness that goes with it, you know, and that's the sort of thing that was happening, you know, like the classic, like, you know, things disappearing, reappearing, you know, so I think it's kind of all connected, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really not uncommon to hear about almost a trickster element to
absolutely.
To UFOs.
It was totally that. It was totally that. It was, you know, yeah.
When a table goes missing, you've got a massive trickster element going on, because you hear about little items going missing like remotes and, you know, phones, stuff like that, but a whole table just up and vanishing and then reappearing like it was just there minutes ago is mind.
Yeah, it just was on the top of the sink in the downstairs kitchen just 3 days later. Like, you know, it was a bloody table, for God's sakes. I mean, it wasn't a kitchen table, but it was a table, you know, like it was big enough. Like, there's no way you can misplace a table and then find it on the kitchen sink.
Of all places. Places.
Yeah.
So, mate, what happened with your UFO encounter, and like, how do you think it is actually all connected? Because I'm with you. I think when you have a paranormal or a UFO encounter, I don't think the difference is really that great at the end of the day.
Well, I think as I mentioned last time, like, that, you know, I started to, like, you know, feel that I was being watched, and then this kind of the sun would go down and this feeling of dread would come over me, and, you know, and I didn't know why, and then basically, you know, it's hard to kind of put it in a sequence of days, but there was one day where it was basically the middle of the daytime, and I was with my ex, Caroline, and we just got kind of unnaturally tired in the middle of the day, like really tired, like, and we kind of blacked out. We don't really have any memory after about like 11 o'clock in the daytime. And then we we woke up, and then I remember like it was just kind of like, what the hell happened? And I was standing in the lounge room, and and where the house was, it overlooked the Terra Nora Inlet, was this beautiful body of water, the Tweed. And I just looked out, and just smack bang, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, after just going having this bizarre sort of crash, just was this UFO, just nuts and bolts sort of flying saucer, just flying straight over. And it had such an impact on me. And because of these things that have been happening before that I mentioned in the previous episode, that I just I think I pretty much almost dropped to my knees, like it was just like, it was kind of this dawning of, oh my God, sort of, this is all real, like, and it just went on from there. I mean, there's so many things happened. One thing that happened, for instance, is I can remember we'd gone down to, it was near the Tweed Heads RSL. It was just this little body of water. And I remember in the last episode, I think I was mentioned that I'd gone and spoken to Mary Rodwell, who was like, she put me under hypnosis, and she was like one of the world's, I think, leading UFO researchers, abduction researchers. And she'd like mentioned something they called that people have had these kind of encounters, they have the high strangeness, and they can have these things like where they get like apported, I think the word is, like where it's basically just sort of things pop into existence, and so Caroline and I had gone down to this kind of sort of still body of water. It was a bay, and we were kind of sitting there, and then I kind of looked down, and there was this, like, I still have these stones. There was this incredibly beautiful, like, shiny sort of black sort of stone, basically, like, and it was just just kind of sitting there, and I just thought, oh, that's really nice, and I kind of went to pick it up, and I picked it up, and didn't think much of it, and then as I'm kind of looking down again, just this is the only way I can describe it, just suddenly there was another one there. It wasn't there before. It just kind of was like pop, it was there. And I kind of remember, like, Caroline was sort of sitting, a few feet away from me, and I kind of picked up the second one, and I'm like, oh, this is, I don't know, am I imagining this kind of something really strange is going on here? And so now it's got my attention, so I'm like looking down again. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing down on the ground in front of me. And then bang, again, just popped into existence, like this third one, and that kind of just really floored me. And I'm going, am I going mad? Like, and then I kind of, explained it to Caroline what was kind of happened, and trying to, think of an explanation. And then I actually said it sounds silly, but I kind of just said, okay, if I'm having contact with some sort of aliens or otherworldly entities or whatever, I am going to look down and find one now. And there wasn't one there before, and then I just looked down, and bang, there was one there, like, and it just kind of, just blew me away. And seriously, they were not there, and then they were there. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It was just so strange. And I then found out that that's apparently a common thing with abductees, and that they can have these stones given to them. Like, I can remember I found 7 of them. And I say found, they were kind of, as I said, they were just not there. Then they were, like, as in, and I actually had them in my hand, and I'd never seen like stones like this in a near sand or anything, and I'm thinking, was the sand, like, but there's no way, like, had they been covered before? But it just wasn't the case, like, you're trying to think of rational explanations. Anyway, so I put these things on. I said, actually put on social media, does anyone know what these things are? And then someone said, they're hematite stones. And then I kind of, and one of the things that happens with this kind of phenomena is that you've probably heard it before, a lot of like synchronicity and, the kind of high strangeness. And then I looked up what these hematite stones were for, and it said that they were really, people use them for channeling otherworldly entities and all this kind of, crazy stuff for me that was kind of hard to believe. But that was one of these instances of just, I cannot explain that. I still have those stones to this day. They go around in my bag with me everywhere. Like, so that's an experience that I just, I can't explain.
It's not uncommon for a lot of people who do kind of the CE5 contact to use stones and gems and things like that.
Yeah, you read that. Yeah, I know. I don't, it was just highly strange, But there was also, when this was all going on, like I was getting, the only way I was this went on for about 6 months, I'd say, and I was not getting much sleep because at night I was kind of terrified and I was trying to get over the fear. And the only way I can describe it, it's just so strange, like that I was getting, and it felt like I was getting information downloaded into my head. And there was so much, it's the only way I can describe it. Like I kind of it's like my DNA was being upgraded or something. And I'll give an example of that is, I'm a musician. I've never been able to play drums. And when all this was going on, I just walked downstairs one day and I couldn't play the drums the day before, and then I could just play them the next day, like really well, like, which I could never understand because I couldn't play them at all. Like, and it felt like I've since read about it. It felt like I don't know, like your DNA was being messed with or something.
Like you could actually feel a change happening within your body.
Yeah. It was really strange. And the information that I was getting, I could understand at the time. And I remember I was trying to tell back to Caroline and that, and I couldn't actually physically say it. Like, it was like I wasn't allowed to tell anyone else. Like, and there was so much information that some days I actually felt sick. It was making me dizzy and I have to sit down. And I have actually read since about people that claim this kind of information download sort of thing. And, there was so much going on. Like,
just with that information being downloaded, I do have a couple of questions, and I hate to jump in, but what was it like? How did it feel having this information downloaded? Like, was it a voice in your head? Could you feel like a buzzing? How did you know it was being downloaded?
Because I knew things, right? Like I suddenly, and this sounds crazy. I mean, one of the only memories I kind of have is I was getting this repeating thing that everything, it's all goes in it. It's all cyclical. And, and I was getting this information, but it's funny, like you're trying to tell people back about it and then you couldn't remember, or you couldn't actually physically say it to people. Like, because I remember one day trying to tell Caroline and I'm kind of going, and it just wouldn't come out of my mouth, even though I had all this information in front of me. Like, it's really strange. It's it's very hard to explain.
Was it that you knew the information in your head, but you couldn't find a way to articulate it?
It was coming from an external source. It wasn't like, it was stuff that I didn't know before. Like, and as I said, that's the only way I think I can explain it. It was like it was being downloaded into me from an external source, like that. It wasn't me that was coming up with this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I'm just trying to get my head around how the information sits in your mind, because it might help kind of understand why you may not have been able to talk about it. So I'm gonna really simplify it for myself, because I'm a pretty simple guy there, Mark. But like hypothetically, like they were, whatever this was downloading this information to you. It was telling you that the sky is blue, but if you didn't know the sky was blue, it was telling you that, but you couldn't reproduce that type of information again. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Also, are you wanting more content? Why not become a Believe Plus member? You'll get access to exclusive podcasts and episodes that aren't available to the public. Not only that, you'll also get our regular feed without any ads.
The stuff
Head to believepod.com/plus to sign up today for just $5 a month.
But I couldn't impart the knowledge to anyone else, and now it's, I know it sounds quite, I don't know, like hard to grasp or whatever, but it's the only way I can describe it. Like,
was it given to you in English?
More like binary, sort of like, yeah, it was more like, I don't know if you know about binary.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
1s and 2s, and like 1s and 0s. Sorry, like.
If you threw a 2
like
into binary code, mate, you'd explode the matrix.
Yeah. So it was more like that. It was just, but yeah, I mean, I was also getting, one thing that happened is that one night we went down to have dinner at Montezuma's, like the Mexican restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And I was getting this, as I said, I can't exactly describe it as a voice. It was more an impression, like that, that these entities, or these, whoever they were, they wanted me to go up into the hinterland, like in the Gold Coast, and they were saying to me, it's okay, we won't hurt you, we just want you to come, we're going to be waiting for you, you'll know where to find us, this kind of thing, like, and I was saying back, going, there's no way I'm going by myself, I'm too scared. And this one night, it got with this, where we went to Montezuma's or whatever, it had been going on for like hours, just this please come sort of thing, like, and it got more insistent, and this was really high strangeness. Like, I was trying to ignore it, and I was telling Caroline at times, like, but I was trying to ignore it. And then I realized that I'd left my wallet out in the car. So I walked out to the car to get my wallet, and it was really like, it was like almost as though someone was banging me on the head, just going, come now, come now, come now, come now. And I was still like refusing. And then when I got the wallet out of the car, I went to walk back to Montezuma's, and it was like, in a dream, where as I walked back, it's like, I'm the only way I can describe it, like it was a time and space sort of thing. Like, it, as I walked, the Montezuma's got further away, like, even though I was walking towards it, like, and at the same time, because I realized that they were trying to almost bend space or something around me to say, get in the car, come into the hinterland now. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's the only way I can describe it. But it was very surreal. Like, and no, I wasn't on any drugs or anything.
Did you feel crazy with all of this going on?
Absolutely. I thought I was having some sort of breakdown. Yeah, I mean, I even got my mother and my sister down, and my girlfriend Caroline, and at the time she was, much more accepting of it than I was, and she's going, well, no, Mark, you're not going crazy because I've seen it as well, So, yeah, there was, but yeah, I definitely did feel like, because it was just almost too much at times, like, yeah, it was almost too much, like that your brain could take or something,
Absolutely, and was exactly going to be one of my questions. Is like, you would have surely felt like this was just complete sensory overload.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to describe it. It was, like, and as I said, plus all this paranormal stuff, like, was going on around me as well. And so the craziest thing that I remember happening, or one of the millions of crazy things at the time, is I can remember, and it's very sort of dreamlike, but like, is standing. I went to bed, and then I suddenly found myself standing. So where the house was, kind of was on the side of a hill overlooking the water, and you had to go up, quite a few steps, like about 30 steps to get to the house. And about halfway up, there was kind of another terraced sort of landing that had a barbecue and that on it. And I just, this one night, found myself standing there on this halfway up the steps at this terrace bit with this barbecue that was there. And this is what I saw. I saw a classic, like, I saw this, well, the only way I can describe it is like a wormhole was just sitting there in front of the barbecue, like the classic, like straight out of something like a Stargate or something. I couldn't really, I knew there was, like, it was kind of hard to distinguish, and then there was this figure in front of it looking at me, and then they just walked into it and just disappeared. Like,
sorry,
so
what walked into it?
Just this human figure, this silhouette. I couldn't see their face or anything, but they were standing there, and I could see they were looking at me, and they just kind of just walked into this, I suppose, wormhole or something like this. Like, that's the only way I can describe what it was. Like, and it felt so real, and as I said, it was kind of dreamlike as well, but it felt so real that in broad daylight, because I was too scared at night, like, sometimes to even go, like, out onto the balcony, because I felt like there were these, they could get me at any time, these visitors or whatever you call them. And I went down the next day in the daytime, and I'm like looking, to see if there was some trap door or something, some figure had walked through, like, because there wasn't. But yeah, that was pretty crazy.
And was this all at the same place that was haunted?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
this
wow.
was all at this same place. Like,
so you go outside to, like, essentially get a break from the weirdness that's going on inside, and you pop your head outside, and there's this essentially a Stargate portal there of some faceless entity going into it.
Yeah, just as I said, though, it was very dreamlike. So, that you kind of think, was I dreaming or something? Like, but it felt real. Like, yeah, it was just really. I know I keep going on, but very strange. Like, and I can remember that same night. I was on the balcony, and I knew there was, like, one of the little greys they were standing in the bushes underneath me. And Caroline actually had an iPad, and she was like she was recording it. And I could see this little grey standing under, like, I was looking over the balcony and it was standing in the bushes, but it wouldn't come out because I think, that when humans are fully kind of conscious with these things, we're a lot kind of stronger than them. So they're pretty, that's why they kind of do what they do, to us when we're more susceptible, because, we're physically stronger than them unless they can mess with our minds or something, if that makes sense,
Yeah, no, it definitely does. So we spoke a little bit earlier about, you feeling like you'd be going a little bit crazy considering everything that's kind of going on. When you saw what you say was almost like a nuts and bolts UFO there, was that an absolute nail in the coffin of everything that I'm experiencing is just so genuine?
Oh, yeah, that was just middle of the daytime. Just flew straight over the top of the house. I mean, that was, and it was just, I remember, like, I basically kind of, it hit me, like, at the same time, like, that it was like, because, as I said, a lot of this, the abduction phenomenon, and people that have had this happen to them will understand it, that it happens in the dead of night a lot of times at 3 a.m. when you're asleep, and it's, like, I think there's a reason for that. Other people I know that have had, conscious sort of recall, but of abductions and stuff. But yeah, this was just the daytime, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, after having a really bizarre, like, being wide awake, and then both of Carol and myself just, it was like we were drugged or something. We just couldn't stay awake at like 11 or 10 in the morning, and then just kind of waking up and seeing this sort of, it was nuts and bolts, flying saucer. Like, it was so ridiculously nuts and bolts, if that makes sense. It was like just the classic one you see in, all the accounts and that.
Do you think you were supposed to see it then, or do you think you and your partner woke up too early?
I'm not sure. I think, no, maybe we were supposed to, but yeah, certainly I think something happened before that, like, that we weren't supposed to remember, and maybe we did wake up too early, or maybe it was just like, look, because I was a mess, like, as we talked about, I was like, am I going crazy or whatever, and so maybe it was just like a little, like, no, you're not, it's, it's all cool, and as I said, with that woman in the last episode that was at the bar and that told me that I was in contact with aliens, and that she was saying to me, oh, it's okay, they won't hurt you, and so maybe it was just, try to help me or something, but to understand that it was real, maybe.
What was your partner's reaction to those events that happened? Because this sounds like it may have been one of the first times that she had been included in that whole side of the abduction.
She was very matter of fact about it, like, and I was saying to her, I think, that it's not just me. I think you're included in this. And she's going, no, it's you, Mark. They want you. Like, I'm just a bystander sort of thing. Like, but yeah, she was very accepting and matter of fact about the whole thing. And she said, well, it's happening whether you like it or not. But yeah, I had my, at the time, and I got my sister and my mother to come and stay, just to show them as well that I wasn't going crazy, and I knew my sister was going to have trouble with it because I know that she'd had an encounter um, about 10 years before, off near the St George's Basin in New South Wales, um, that terrified her, and I knew that the way she would react would be in kind of anger and because I just knew that she was kind of in denial and it kind of scared her, and um, so I wanted her to see it, if that makes sense, to accept it, and because I could quickly tell you what happened to my sister. She was with her husband in the St George's Basin, which is kind of on the way to Coombe. They were going to Coombe in New South Wales, and it was the classic thing where they were followed by a light that was off, in this cow paddock, and they wound the window down, and there was no sound. And then they noticed there was a car that was behind them as well, and then suddenly they were getting chased down the road by this blinding sort of light, and it was the classic thing you hear about where there was the Oz factor they talk about, where there was kind of no sound, and they went screaming into a service station, like freaking out, saying they got chased down the road by this light, and the car that was behind them just had disappeared, and then that car ended up coming into the service station about 10 minutes later or something, and these guys were crying, and they said the car got pulled off the road by this craft, and I knew that had happened to my sister, and something, there was missing time with my sister as well, but I've never been able to get to the bottom of it because she wouldn't talk about it, really, if that makes sense.
That's a really scary thing to happen.
Yeah. That would be terrifying.
Is that why you think she wouldn't be able to accept what's happening with you?
Yeah, well, that's what I figured. I wanted her to see it, so she could kind of accept it, but I knew that she'd probably react the way she did. It's funny, she doesn't now. She accepts it. It took a while, but totally, Cade.
It's amazing how some people react to these situations and how they hold on to that moment just for essentially their whole life. And I'm always so curious about what kind of breaks that paradigm for them to open up and talk about it. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's just so out of our normal everyday human existence. It's just that I can you can understand it, why it's hard to accept, because everything about it breaks the laws of physics and that we know of in this 3D dimension, or of ours. So and it's the prejudices that we grow up with as well. I think that that kind of some people are more accepting of it than others.
Do you find that you still have encounters with abductions today?
I do. Only a couple of weeks ago, I had I just, once again, it's like, is it a dream? It's very dreamlike. I just woke up in the middle of the night, and I remember there was two classic sort of grey aliens in the house with me. At my friend's house who'd gone away. He'd gone away for the night, and it coincided with the power in the house kind of went off, but the power didn't go off anywhere else. So I thought that was strange. But yeah, I once again, it's some of it. I think it's deliberately. There's things that I'm not supposed to remember because I think for me the fear is still just can hold you back. I think if you can get over the fear, it could be pretty damn good.
It's a difficult thing to not be scared of, because I think I could deal with a paranormal encounter. I think I could deal with a Yowie encounter, but the idea that an alien is standing across from me is, I think that's so world breaking that would probably be the most terrifying thing, because it's just the complete unknown right there.
Yeah, well, yeah, and their brains are so much like it works on a different planet. Like they're just so much more intelligent than us that it's actually really confronting for a human to be around it, because it's like they can look right through you. They know everything about you. You're like a rat in a cage. That's the feeling that you have.
I would imagine it's almost like your complete soul is bared and there's nothing you can hide, even if you tried.
Yeah, totally. That's what it feels like. It's very confronting.
So why do you think they're contacting you?
I have no idea. Probably, maybe, they always have. But no, I have no idea. I'd like to know. But I think, as I said, I think there's a lot that I don't. I mean, I want to go back and see Mary Rodwell. I'd like to one day, just to remember more consciously, if but no, just to be honest, I have no idea.
Do you get frightened from them still?
Oh yeah, terrified. Like, and that's what I want to get over. But yeah, totally.
Well, what would it take personally for you to not be terrified in these moments, if you don't mind me asking?
I think it'd be good if it's because a lot of this, for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot of people on your podcast the same, where it'd be good if they could just knock on the front door.
That I do hear that a lot. It's
yeah.
I think a lot of people have the issue with how they're taken without their will, and I totally get that.
Yeah, it's this kind of I know that there's other people that have this kind of total recall, and it can happen in the middle of the day and stuff like that. But most of my stuff is I'm just not supposed to remember, or not allowed to remember, and I think a lot of that mainly is because of the fear that I'm just literally. Because I can one thing that I can remember, there was this one night at the house, and I just woke up, not knowing how I'd got down there, and I was laying on the downstairs floor of the so there was 2 stories to the house, and there was a lounge room and a kitchen downstairs as well, and it was 3 in the morning or something, and just suddenly found myself laying downstairs on the concrete floor, And when I woke up, the terror that was I felt as I became conscious was just, it's hard to describe, but it was just absolute mind-numbing fear where you literally hit just hysterical from, like, I mean, I used to be in the corner of the room in a fetal position, just, some nights just from the fear. Yeah. But I'd like to get over that, because I think it could be pretty cool if you could.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's you are potentially one of the few individuals who are on the cusp of knowing so much more than everyone else. And I think a lot of people will probably be envious of you. I'm personally not. It sounds all way too terrifying for my liking. But I think some people out there are probably in the same boat as you. I would know some people are definitely in the same boat as you. And,
yeah,
it's I want to thank you so much for coming forward and sharing this other half of your story, because I think it is important that people know that they're not alone out there when it comes to this type of thing, and that there are other people going through very similar, if not the same type of difficult circumstances.
Yeah, well, I think, you only have to look around us now that, it is coming more and more mainstream, which still blows me away, really. The abduction phenomenon is still kind of, we haven't quite got there, but, you only have to look at, the New York Times, and, they're actually kind of started to talk about it. I never thought I'd see that day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast. If you have had an encounter and you would like to share it, please get in touch with me. My email address is believepod@gmail.com. Finally, don't forget to follow us on all our social media outlets, and be sure to join our Discord server to talk to other listeners of the show. You'll find all these links in our show notes. Thank you.